Everyone, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room. My name is Lewis, and today we're doing things a little bit different. We're essentially Luis Suarez and the 2013-14 teams at times because we're a one-man show. I'm here today to go through all the topics that have been picked by the guys. All news Liverpool doesn't stop just because we're on the international break, and this is very much a fan episode as well because your guys' comments are going to be a big part of the show. Anything that you want to ask, go for it. It can be Liverpool. It can be my thoughts on specific topics. You guys are as big as part of the show as any of us. So please make sure to get your comments in and I will pick them as the show goes on, discuss them in depth, and we'll go into as much detail as possible to get you guys the experience that you deserve. Make sure to tune in every single day at 7:30. The shows are live. These are live streamed for an hour every day. 7:30, 2 a.m. on Tuesday for the American audience, UK time, that is, not American time. And there will be post-match shows, including this weekend after the Everton game, a game which hopefully we're going to pick up 3 points and really cement our place in the title race. Just for anyone new around here as well, please make sure to like and subscribe. So close to 10k subscribers. I believe we're on 9.75 at the moment, something so close. I think we could get there by the end of the year. So please make sure you give us a like and subscribe. So we've got a list of topics today that we're going to go through. First one is Liverpool linked with Musiala. Now, Musiala, I think, is one of those players that we all know. We all know him. We've all heard of him. He's one of the up-and-coming talents in the Bundesliga, just in world football in general, to be honest. He first made his big appearance on the scene in the Champions League a few seasons ago for Bayern. He's since gone on to make 94 appearances, 23 goals, 20 assists, and that's just in the Bundesliga. I think he's got something like 5 goals in the Champions League. He's been incredible for a good number of years for the club, and Liverpool are apparently interested in him. The reports are coming out that Bayern have stalled on contract talks, or they've been on hold since April. Whether this is because we're Bayern simply just don't have the financial resources at the moment, whether this is because they just don't see it as an immediate necessity. He's in contract till 2026, so any deal for any club coming in would be a fortune, and I think that applies to Liverpool as well. Now, like I said, make sure you guys get your comments in. Anything about this? We've got Paul Lindo actually saying anything on the Musiala rumour, or is it just wishful thinking? Let me know what you guys think. I personally think that this is just wishful thinking. Liverpool at the moment, we're not in a situation where we're crying out for that attacking midfielder. At the moment, we're not even playing McAllister in his preferred position. He's meant to be the number 10 or number 8. He's meant to be further forward. Musiala would come in. A lot of depth in that midfield already. Is he necessarily what we're looking for? Not really. And I do think with FSG being the way they are financially, Musiala is going to command a large fee, and we would need to sell on probably a decent number of players just to be able to afford them. Bayern aren't in a position where they need to sell. They've just signed Harry Kane, one of the best strikers in world football. So they might be looking to stake their claim for the Champions League. He's at a really good club at the moment. Any deal that we want for him is probably going to cost upwards of around 70, 80 million. And do you guys really think that's necessary for an attacking midfielder when we've already got the likes of Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott? It just doesn't seem like such a necessity at the moment. Unbelievably talented player. We all know this. But it's just not something that we necessarily need at the moment. I agree with the wishful thinking rumour. I just think that there's no necessity for it, really. Whether as or not Bayern, because Bayern are due to Sane is rumoured to be leaving. There's rumours of Gnabry over the past few days potentially leaving the club. Whether or not they're true, we don't know, but I don't think Bayern would put themselves into a position where they lose someone like Musiala, who's a very valuable commodity to the team, and risk losing steam in the league or even the Champions League, because that's what they're after. The Bundesliga is the main target for them. Losing someone like Musiala is really going to have an impact on their pursuit of Champions League football. And yes, they get a lot of money for him, but Bayern have a big enough draw that they can bring in any players that they really want. There's no point in selling one of your best up-and-coming players just for money. There's no benefit. And he's in contract for another 3 seasons. I think the reason they've put him on put it on the back burner for now is just because it's not an urgent priority. There's other areas in the pitch, there's other areas in the backroom staff that need addressing. It just doesn't seem like a necessary one at the moment. Got a good comment here. Evening, Tobias Al-Shafi, a journalist who writes for Sports Bill, pretty much knows much of what's going on at Bayern Munich. He is a very credible source. This is true. And with our owner at the moment, not owner, you're in charge of transfers at the moment. He's very much a Bundesliga-based type of scout, cheaper transfers. He's very much focused on bringing in players that would suit our style, and he is very much a Bundesliga general. He's specifically picking players from the Bundesliga. We saw that with Soboslai, saw that with Endo. We've seen it with a lot of players that we're linked with currently, and this very much fits his mold, so to speak. This very much fits what he has done so far for us. It's a Bundesliga up-and-coming young player whose value is only going to increase. Similar in the way to, I don't like Soboslai, he's only going to get more valuable, and Musiala fits that kind of role. He's a very talented player. As I've said, I don't think he's what we need, but he definitely is a player who's going to increase in value over time. He would have something to contribute. And I think bringing in players like that would be beneficial to the club going forward. But if this was 12 months ago, at the start of last season, or even the summer just gone, and we hadn't signed the players we have, it would have been an exceptional transfer to be linked with. Right now, though, unless there's some more key departures in the summer, I just don't personally see it. Linking back to what I said about Sane, Peter said, do we end up buying Sane to help Ben Doak for his development, or is Ben Doak seen as a future left winger in our system? It's an interesting one. Sane is a player who I've always said would do very well for Liverpool. Very versatile, very fast. He fits the Sadio Mane type of role. And that's why I was a bit shocked when Bayern actually got Sadio Mane, because they had Gnabry and Sane there. We've seen what he could do at Man City. We've seen what he's been doing at Bayern. He's a very talented player. Again, he'd be quite expensive, but I personally would love him at Liverpool. However, if you want to help Ben Doak for his development, I don't see the point in going out and signing with Sane when you could just do everything in your power to keep Mohamed Salah, the player who is already world class, already fits our system, already is one of the best players, if not the best right winger on the planet. I don't see the point in spending that extra money on Sane to come in just to help develop Ben Doak to a next level. I think we should use the players that we've got at the club who know the system to help develop this young up-and-coming talent. He's still very young. He's got a lot to learn. Sane would be a brilliant player, but I just don't necessarily see him as the inspiration for Ben Doak. I think Ben Doak needs to be learning off the likes of Salah, off Jota, off Diaz, maybe even a bit of Gakpo and Nunez in there, rather than trying to bring in an outside source like Sane, for example, who's just going to command incredibly high wages, a huge transfer fee, and it just doesn't seem like a very FSG move. I understand the point. I get where you're coming from with regards to developing Doak, but is it what we really need? Probably not. I'd rather just keep Ben Doak learning from the players that we currently have. Remember to keep all your comments coming in, guys. I say I'm just going to be picking them as we go. Give us anything that you want to talk about. This is your chance tonight to get your comments in. Even if you want to hurl abuse at me for some of my outlandish statements, you go for it, because we've got an hour to go here. Next one, is Thiago a better defender than Trent? If the answer is no, why do we think Thiago can play at the 6 but Trent can't? What can Thiago do that Trent can't? I don't get it. Well, Thiago, I argue, is not that good of a player. I completely agree in a sense. I've heard a lot of people say that Thiago is a good defensive-minded player. You look at his tackle success rate; it's actually fairly high, but the metrics are swayed because he never plays. If he has one game where he commits 10 tackles, obviously his success rate is going to be high because he's got legs like soggy Weetabix. He never plays; he's always injured. Trent can do everything Thiago can do. Thiago can't do everything Trent can do. Trent is more mobile and versatile. Thiago is a very static player, but his best benefit and his best ability is that he's able to pass the ball off successfully. We all saw the Man United game of a few seasons ago where his through balls, his inverted crosses across the pitch were really causing United problems. Trent can do that, but Trent can actually move. Trent is a versatile player. Thiago is very limited to what he's actually capable of doing. He can't. If you put him in a position, he doesn't run. That's not his role. It's not what he likes to do. He's a deep line playmaker, so to speak. And I personally don't think the deep line playmaker works in the Premier League. Whether or not you guys think that's correct, let me know. I just feel like it's suited to something more like the Italian league, whereas in the Premier League, you need physical giants in defensive midfield, your Fabinhos, your Casemiros, your Nemanja Matic's. Every Premier League team that has won the Premier League has had a rock-solid defensive midfielder. Thiago is not that. Trent is not that. They're a different type of player. But I just think with Trent, you're at least getting a bit of mobility. With Thiago, he's a luxury player. His passing is exceptional. When he has a good game, he has a great game. But because he doesn't play that often and because he is getting on age-wise, his mobility has come down. And in a Liverpool team which relies so heavily on energy, pace, tenacity, it doesn't fit. And he never feels like he sort of fit the Liverpool system to me personally. Trent at least will commit to a tackle more. He'll at least run his heart out for the club. Thiago is more suited to, like the Italian league, for example, where he can sit back, ping balls across the park, and dictate the tempo of the play, similar to a Xabi Alonso, so to speak. When he was at Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, he can sit back. There's other players in front of him who are going to command the midfield. He can just pick and choose his passes all he wants and be the maestro in midfield. Thiago can't do that at Liverpool necessarily. A, because he's never fit, and B, because I just think Trent does a better job. He keeps him out of the team personally. As I said, guys, plenty of comments coming in. Trying to actually keep up. You've done wow. Everyone's just going to the Musiala one as well. Musiala, £110 million. So good luck with bleeding those coppers at FSG. We'll get on to FSG in a bit, actually, because this is an interesting topic with all the stuff going on at the moment with United. But yeah, €110 million. That'd probably be about 95 million pounds. It's just not what we need at the moment. Even with our new investment coming in from diversity, I believe it's called diversity equity. It's not going to, there's no benefit. That is essentially the whole investment gone on one player that we just don't necessarily need. You don't hire players to develop, you hire them to be quality for you in games. The leadership qualities are something you get extra. This, yes, I 100% agree with this. We should be bringing in players for now. If we want to compete for the title, that's what City do. They lose someone, they bring someone in who's going to potentially develop into a world-class player. They bring in the world-class player. If you've then got those world-class players in your starting 11 or your squad, then you can bring in the younger players who are going to develop behind them. Let them learn. And then when the first person goes, you have a ready-made replacement. Look at Kwanzaa now. We have a centre-back who's learning and developing behind Van Dijk, Kanate, Matip. When one of them goes, he's ready to step into the role. If this was a case of we didn't have him in the summer and we needed a centre-back, we wouldn't have signed him because he wouldn't be ready-made. We would have had to sign someone who's ready to go now because that's what we need. For clubs like City, for example, they have such depth of world-class players, maybe not at the moment, but in the past, that they can sign those players who are going to develop into great players. But for now, we are in need of great players, just players who can go in straight away. And I think that's what we've done this summer, really, with the signings that we have made. if you had the choice between selling Salah next season for 120 to 150 million or keeping him another year and him going on a free, what would you choose? I would rather sell because the money could be invested elsewhere, as we've seen. We saw it with Coutinho. We've seen it many times in the past where we've sold a player and we've used that money to invest wisely. Getting Salah, I adore Salah and I want him to stay forever, but keeping him, just sell it, go on a free, doesn't benefit us, and there's no guarantee that just because we're keeping that extra season, we're going to do well. We could have a similar season to last season or 3 seasons ago where we stagnate and struggle. There's no guarantee by keeping him that we're going to be incredible, whereas there's a guarantee if we sold him for that money, we have that income, we have that money, and we can use it to further develop this squad with more depth, a centre-back, a right-back, CDM, necessity. I would rather sell him for the money than potentially risk the extra season where we could dip. You could just get another world-class season with him, that's obvious. But just because he's having a world-class season doesn't mean the squad does. And yeah, it's a tricky situation. So going back onto our topics, we have Ben Doak. We got mention of him earlier, one of the comments. Ben Doak is injured. He suffered an injury against Malta in the under-21s match, I believe it was, for Scotland, or the under-17s even. We don't know a lot about it. We don't know if it's severe. We don't know if it's a minor injury. We don't know where we stand. He's been sent back to Liverpool for scans. This goes alongside with the Andrew Robertson one. A lot of Scottish players getting injured at the moment. We're unsure if it's a severe injury for Doak or a minor one. Let me know what you guys think. What kind of injury do you think it was? I didn't see the match. I didn't see if he was limping off the pitch. I didn't see if he was structured off, if he just walked off. If anyone's got any extra information on that, let me know. I've always had the concern with Doak that he could be rushed in. Now, we've seen in the past Wayne Rooney, Michael Owen, these players that they start off like a house on fire and the injuries catch up to them. And that is something that could happen with Doak. Hopefully it doesn't. He has the ability, though, of an old traditional winger. One of the guys said this before. He's very much an old-style winger. And that does make me nervous because old-style wingers used to rely on pace more than anything. And he is a very quick player, but in the same Michael Owen bracket, that might be all we utilise him for, and it could have long-term effects. If this is an injury to do with his legs now, there could be repercussions further down the line. Thankfully, we have a lot of depth up front. We've got the likes of Nunez and Salah and Jota and Diaz that can all fill in these roles. So we're not in an immediate necessity to necessarily bring to panic. There's no point. We have the depth. We can always adapt to these situations. Gakpo's out, and there's no panic there. Salah is a very, very fit player. He tends not to suffer too many injuries. I've got no wood to touch, so we're just going to have to go with that. But thankfully, if it was a different position, say if it was a centre back, say if Van Dijk got injured, or if it was a different. If it was the backup of a different player, so if it was the deputy to Van Dijk or it was a deputy to, say, Thiago was starting every game, I feel different because they are more likely to get injured, whereas Salah is a very fit player. He tends not to suffer these injuries, so not having Ben Doak there isn't necessarily the biggest blow. If it's only for a week or two, give him the time to get back into the squad, give him the time to recuperate. There's no immediate rush because we have depth on there. Thankfully, this isn't a few seasons ago where it was Mane, Salah, Firmino. If one of them goes, there's no one in there to replace them. We have an abundance of players up front who can take over each role, and thankfully, we're very fortunate with that. Klopp's done brilliantly with bringing these players in to give us that option. It makes us unpredictable. And Doak, it's a shame to see him injured. Like I've said, we don't know the extent of it. Could be a long-term thing, could be short-term. He could have a bruise, he could have an ACL, we don't know. But at the moment, it's not an immediate concern, so to speak. Doak has hardly featured. Salah is obviously the starting right winger. There are worse players to get injured, like we've suffered with Andrew Robertson. That one could have a detrimental effect. If we get to AFCON, though, and Doak's still injured, that's when maybe things struggle because we won't have Salah at that point. That's maybe when there's time to sort of get a bit nervous. But at the moment, I don't think there's much need necessarily to panic. I'm curious to see what we do next. When we had an obvious gap at midfield, we double up on attackers. When we got our middies, we look like we need a new anchor in the back. What position do we buy? I've always been in the belief that we need a CDM desperately. We desperately need a CDM. Endo clearly just isn't fitting at the moment. McAllister keeps having to operate at that number 6 role, and it's not suiting him. He's really struggling at times with it. We are in desperate need of signing a out-and-out defensive midfielder, like when we signed Fabinho. And before that, we had the likes of Mascherano, we had Xabi Alonso, all these players who anchor that midfield at the point. Obviously, Alonso stopped doing that towards the end of Mascherano into centre-back, but when they were first there, they were rock solid. Fabinho was that player. McAllister is not. If you're going to play McAllister as the CDM, as the number 6 at the moment, he's better further forward. If you're doing that, you might as well play Trent there. A player who's not out and out defensive, can pick a pass, better going forward. Unless McAllister is in a double pivot, like we've seen with the Argentina squad, or like we saw at Brighton, it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to be there. CDM is the one area of the pitch where we know that we have no out-and-out set player. Right back, we have Trent. Centre back, we have Van Dijk Canate. Left back, Robertson. Right wing, Salah. All the other players have 1 or 2 who can switch. Nunez, Gakpo, Jota, Diaz. CDM, we don't. We have Endo, and Endo does not play. So that is the one area of the pitch where we desperately do need reinforcements, and we need that depth. It's all well and good having players further up who can track back, but if we get caught out, like we did against Brighton, like we did against Chelsea earlier on in the season, it can come back to bite us. And that's just the one part of the pitch where we desperately, desperately need to address. So yeah, I think that'll be the next one. I'd be happy if we sign Musiala. Only brings more competition and is already a very good player, but don't know if it will happen. I agree. It would bring competition, but at the same time, you bringing him in is going to have an effect on the players that we've already signed. I don't think McAllister and Szoboszlai came into this team expecting to have to rotate with Musiala, unless Elliott's planning on going somewhere, or Curtis Jones, or any of our other attacking midfielders. All well and good having the competition, but Musiala is playing week in, week out for Bayern. Szoboszlai is playing week in, week out for us, so is McAllister. Musiala coming in is going to disrupt someone, and I just don't see him as a necessity personally. I do get where you're coming from. He's a very good player, only does bring competition, and that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. City have it in abundance, or they did anyway last season. For us, I would rather have a settled squad who I know is going to play and good players behind them. If Musiala's coming into that fold, we don't even know who's behind them, and there could be issues there. There could be too much depth. We could have gone from having no central midfielders to too many, and all of them are brilliant, and they're fighting over places, but then one of them isn't getting in on a consistent basis. Gravenberch isn't getting starting roles just yet. When Jones comes back, will he even get there? He's happy to wait. Is Musiala, though? I mean, he might not be. Like I've said, he's playing for Bayern pretty much every game. There's no guarantee that he's going to get the game time with us if he comes. And for that amount of money, I know that's modern football money-wise, but it's a gamble, just to me personally. Right. Remember to get all the comments in. As I say, I'm going to be doing them as I go, guys. The next news, though, is Ouedraogo, the Schalke player, very young, 17, I believe. He is being monitored by Liverpool. This has been all over Sky Sports. It's been all over a bunch of credible sources today. I'm just going to go through a few stats about him. I personally do not know a huge deal about him myself. He's very much a player that I've heard of today. He definitely... There's definitely ability there. Once again, it goes to the Jörg Schmadtke case of going to Germany and signing all these players. He like there was a comment before that was saying we need ready-made players, but and I made the case of we need ready-made players and deputies behind them, young deputies, not like Musiala, who's already there, younger ones, players who are going to learn. This could be ideal. And I said, Thiago's not getting any younger. McAllister, Soboslai, Gravenberch have all just come in. There's no guarantee that Elliott works just yet. Curtis Jones, I've always said this season's make or break. So far, it's making it, but we never know. We need that young deputy to come in for the price of it. I've heard rumours around 17 million. That's not bad, but just to go through some of the stats with him, just some things that I've seen. So for Schalke, they're currently 16th in Bundesliga 2. Now, does that mean he'd be eager to leave? Possibly. Schalke have been a bit of a basket case for a good few years now in terms of the financial situation going there. You know, when they were getting relegated, there was sounding like some Kolasinac on contracts where they couldn't offer him the money. It's Schalke are just, they're in a position where I think if someone came in with a good amount of money for a player like that, there would be more impetus on him leaving because he wants to play in a good league, I assume. No offense to Bundesliga 2, it's just obviously not the Premier League. He'd be learning from world-class players. I don't think there is any of them at Schalke, really. And Schalke were a club who, when they got relegated, there was enough sort of there to bounce back. They haven't. And maybe he wants to challenge himself. Maybe he wants to compete against the best, and that might be reason to leave. If we look through the statistics of him, so this is per 90 minutes, metrics-wise, he's actually fairly decent. So his pass completion is only 77%. He's a very sporadic player from what I've seen. He's very much, he wants to beat players. He's not necessarily a pass master. He is a talented player, just from what I can see. I've seen Ouedraogo just 17, a talent, but not a player that could challenge what we already have, but a good investment. Again, what I was saying before, he's going to take time to get there, but he's not the ready-made package now. He's a long-term plan. We've got the start 11, and then we've got the subs, the younger players, and then we've got the bracket of, say, like your Billy Kumetios, your Ben Doaks, your Connor Bradleys. Maybe Ouedraogo would be the next player in that category for the young players who are ready to take the mantle when players leave. So going back to his stats then, so pass completion of 77%, progressive passes 3.23, again, not bad. Progressive carries 2.28, successful take-ons 4.18. Now, that is the telling part. That shows that he wants to beat a player, meaning he's a more aggressive type of player further up the pitch. Again, if we're thinking long term, we could do with more of them in the future, just not for right now. And would he be happy coming to a club where he's going to probably play for the under 18s, maybe under 21s, and then work his way to the team? Kwanzaa did it. We've seen a lot of our players in the past who've dropped down to those lower development leagues and then had to work their way up. We signed 2 this summer, I believe. One from Leicester, one from West Ham. I can't quite remember the names. If anyone knows them, please let me know. Midfielder and a centre-back, I believe it was. Who go into those development leagues. Vandenberg did it when he first signed for us. So he would probably fall into that bracket. He's a very fanatic player from what I've seen, very sporadic. He just wants to beat people. He's young, he's 17. His tackle success rate, his dribbling success rate, as I say, his successful take-ons are good, 4.18, but he attempts 9.27 a game. So he gets dispossessed a lot, and that's learning. He's a young player. This seems like a Jörg Schmadtke and Jurgen Klopp type of signing. Young development player from Klopp, the German league from Jörg Schmadtke, a player whose value is only going to increase as the years go by. That's very much our mould. If we could get him for 17 million, he plays well in the lower leagues, maybe gets a few first team appearances. Brilliant. It's not the necessity at the moment. We do need a DM. A lot of the comments are right in saying this. It's not what we need right now. Liverpool need a DM, a good one. We need Andre, even though I've never seen players go as a CDM. I completely agree. CDM, as I said earlier in the street, is the priority, and that is what we absolutely need. But if we're talking a young player for the future, maybe this is someone to go for the further up roles, for the more attacking roles. In a defensive sense, we need players for now, and I completely agree with that. And I think Andre is going to happen. All these reports and all the reliable sources that are coming out saying the deal's done, the deal's going to be done, it's going to be announced the first week of January, the price has already been agreed. I completely agree. And I think Andre would be ideal in that CDM role. I don't believe he's an out-and-out CDM, so to speak, but he's a good defensive player. Maybe in the N'Golo Kante role where he doesn't look intimidating. He doesn't look like the most physical specimen, but he can commit to a tackle and win those tackles. And I think that's what he'll do. CDM is definitely the priority. Further up the pitch, not a priority, but in the future it might be. And having someone young who could either break into the team or resale value could be 3-4 times what we bought them for. That's a win-win situation. It's not, and in the modern game, £17 million is minuscule in terms of finances. So it's a gamble. It's a gamble that can pay off. Not many downsides to it. And I just think with the stats he's got at the age he's got, yes, he's in the Bundesliga too. I'm aware of this, but they're decent stats. Now, per game for the past 5 games, so he did 70 minutes, 85 minutes, 25 minutes, 64 minutes, and 5 minutes. So he's getting game time, he's getting experience, and it's definitely good that he's doing this. He's not just a young player we've heard about and we're just thinking, yes, let's go for him, let's get him. There's actually credible statistics, and he's getting minutes under his belt at a young age, which could benefit him. The only other thing with this as well is Bayern are interested now. Is he going to move to a different country? He's obviously a German player. He plays for the under-21s at the moment, or the under-18s even. So he's playing for them plenty. Would he leave Germany to come to us? Maybe not. It has happened in the past, but when Bayern, the big dogs of Germany, are asking for you, you're more likely going to go there. If we lose out on him, it's not something I'm losing sleep over, but I do think this could be a very Liverpool deal, so to speak. Bring him in young, get him a few games, sell them on for much more money, or in a perfect scenario, he comes good and becomes a world beater and he's a staple in that team for years to come. But I'm being very optimistic with it. I'm fully aware of this, but it could happen. Going back to this one, as I say, Liverpool is DM, a good one, as everyone knows. But as you know, Schmadtke seems limited in the German market and Andre is in Brazil. This is true, but not every player we signed was from the German league. McAllister obviously was the Premier League, just as the one example. Endo obviously was German league, Soboslai was German league, Gravenberch was German league. We get this, but other than Endo, Gravenberch and Soboslai have come in. I don't care what league they're from. If they're going to play the way they've been playing, fine, stick to what you know. It doesn't bother me. I mean, they've been world class at times. Maybe not Gravenberch, he's been great, but Soboslai's looked unreal. And if Schmadtke's going to buy players that good, whether it's in the German league or not, does not matter. Andre, my only concern I have with the German market, the issue I have with the Brazilian league even is there's a big quality gap there, and players have come from there and done very well, definitely. But I think Andre could live up to the hype that's being put around him, but I feel like we're in a situation where, because we're so desperate for a CDM, Andre coming in, everyone's bigging it up and turning it into this huge thing and saying, he's going to be the answer, he's going to be the CDM that we need, and he might be. I do think at times, though, we as fans tend to get carried away with things. I personally do not know a great deal about Andre, only what I've seen. And I think a lot of people agree. YouTube highlight videos are very flattering. Stats-wise, he is very good. I'm not saying Andre is one of those players, but all the people sort of saying, he's going to come in, fix our problems. there's no guarantee. I do think he'd be a very good player for us, and I do think we need to get him for the price that's being touted around 25, 30 million. If we can beat Arsenal to him, brilliant. But just because we signed him, I do think we are maybe needing to look at another CDM just to come in. Julian Ward signed McAllister, not Schmadke. That's my mistake. I apologise. So yeah, we do only sign German League players very clearly. We've got a few comments saved. Just before we carry on, please make sure to like and subscribe. We're so close to 10k subs. You guys really deserve it. Live every night, 7:30 p.m., 2 a.m. on a Tuesday morning for the American audience, UK time, that is 2 a.m. and post-match streams every time there's a match on. Everton's this weekend, so there will be a stream straight after the match, and there'll be a stream at 7:30, so you get two in the one day, which is always good. This one, it's easy to call players been injured so long for a quality performance in so long a luxury. In that we haven't needed him to win thus far, and might not going forward. This goes back to my Thiago. I suppose you can call it a bit of a rant. Thiago one earlier. I just think he's one of those players who's been hampered by injury. Similar to Daniel Sturridge, he could have been unbelievable if injuries just didn't catch up with him. He's one of the ones that Thiago falls in that same category. It's very much, I think, if injuries weren't a part of him the way they are, we could have been looking at one of the great exports from the German league in the Premier League. It just unfortunately didn't happen, or it hasn't anyway so far. He might come back and be unbelievable and not get injured. I don't know. Next one, with Robbo injured, isn't this time for us to try three at the back like City with Trent as a double pivot? That's what City does, and I don't trust Costas. It's very interesting. I think if we play three at the back, we become a lot more defensive minded. And against City, we need to very much be on the front foot. Not necessarily, it's not say like we're going to have five at the back and we're going to sit back the whole game. But I don't know, it's really difficult. I think that is not the game to be gambling, the Everton game. Not with this. I don't think with the three at the back system, Everton's not the game to be gambling for it, whether it's at home or away, it doesn't matter, because Everton, yes, they're poor, and yes, obviously we tend to beat them, but I think in a derby, the crowd gets behind them, the passion's there, the energy's there. If they find a way to beat the system, I don't necessarily think this is the game to do it. This should be like a Europa League test or a League Cup test, not the Everton match. It's worth a go at some point, definitely. We definitely have the personnel to be able to do it. If we were doing the double pivot role at the moment, we would have to probably have McAllister there with Trent in that inverted role. So if he starts as like a right wing back and comes in, but then there's a huge gap there. The three centre backs are going to get very spread out, and I think depending on what team you play, they could waltz through it. Yeah, I just think it's a gamble. It's definitely something that could be looked into 100%, but I just don't think that the next game is the one to do it. But you do make a good point, Paul. It is something that we should be looking into, I think, going forward. Next one, if Klopp leaves, which current manager in the Premier League other than Pep would you be happy with? Ange Postecoglou. I would love Ange. I think he plays very much in a similar style to when Klopp first came in. He wouldn't be my pick. I think if I was to pick any manager, it would probably be Arteta, if I'm being honest. I think he plays a very sort of similar style to us and Man City at times. Ange is very much attack. And our biggest criticism this season has been the defence. Now, I'm not saying Mikel is an outstanding manager, but he's got the age on his side. He's won an FA Cup. He works with world-class players on a daily basis. He's clearly built the squad to a position where they've got enough depth and enough ability to compete with Man City. We saw that last season. In terms of for now and the future, Ange could drop. I've heard the comparison Spurs like an elephant on a tree. You don't know how they got up there, but eventually the branch is going to snap. And I see that happening. Arsenal, I don't see a huge decline. And I think Arteta has a huge part to do with that. if Klopp was to leave and they said, "Would you pick any manager?" I think it would be Arteta. Postecoglou is in the conversation, but he'd be my sort of third choice. And I think if there was a second one, it would probably be. I was going to say De Zerbi, but no, I don't particularly want Zerbi. I just Arteta or Ange. I think they're the two that I'm really thinking of at the moment. Emery wouldn't do a job for us personally. I just don't think he fits. None of the lower down managers are necessarily outstanding. Vincent Kompany's been a bit disappointing. Definitely wouldn't have Roy Hodgson back. That's for sure. So yeah, I think Arteta. I think he was the one for me. True, we do have a lot of midfielders. I wouldn't be against signing Musiala though, but if we don't, we already have a great midfielder. Just need a CDM. Yeah, I 100% agree. CDM is just the priority. Remember to keep the comments coming in. I've saved a couple more here for later on. There's a few great ones tonight, so really, really do appreciate it. Our next topic of conversation, though, man management. So Lewandowski has come out with a big statement about Jurgen Klopp, actually. Jurgen was not only a father figure to me as a coach, he was like the bad teacher, and I mean that in the best sense of the word. Think back to when you were in school. Which teacher do you remember the most? Not the one who made life easy for you and never expected anything from you. No, no, no. You remember the bad teacher, the one who restricted you, the one who put pressure on you and did everything to get the best out of you. That's the teacher who made you better, right? And Jurgen was like that. Now, in the current landscape of football, and it's a very nowadays more than ever, I think man management is so important in football. For the context of this, Lewandowski has come out and said that Jurgen Klopp is the best man manager he's worked with, and he's was such an integral part in his development. Man management now is the most important thing in football, especially towards younger players. In the modern age, things like mental health are the biggest thing in the world at the moment. It's a huge part of life in general. Footballers, especially young footballers, are growing up in that world. And to have a man manager who can help develop young players and a good squad is so important. Jurgen is a prime example of that. We've seen in the past that Bobby Robson did it at Newcastle. He was a brilliant man manager. It's so key, and play managers like Pep get that as well. Some players need the strictness. Some players need the person who's going to sit them down and say, "Look, you've been dreadful. You need to improve." And then some players need the arm around their shoulder. You were great. You were great. I've heard Jamie Carragher say Rafa Benitez wasn't a particularly good man manager. He just constantly more. Pep, Klopp, about two of the best at the moment. Eddie Howe is another one, apparently. Pochettino is brilliant. Brendan Rodgers, Gerrard himself, he's the best man manager he ever had at Liverpool. And he puts him over the likes of Gerard Houllier in that regard. It's vital. Lewandowski benefited massively, I think, from Klopp's tutelage at Dortmund, as did Goethe, as did Royce, Hummels, Subotic, Lars Bender, or Sven Bender, I can't quite remember which one was there. They all benefited from him massively. He was, well, he still is. He's arguably the best man manager in the Premier League at the moment. And if you compare it to Ten Hag now, if Klopp's ever had an issue with a player, or Klopp's ever had an issue with players' performances, it wouldn't be all over the news. Mamadou Sakho was a prime example. He was dropped from the squad. He was sent off. We sold him. No messing around. He just wasn't in the team. He wasn't in the preseason. It was all done professionally behind the scenes. He didn't come out in an interview and slate the player. He didn't come out and say he didn't train well. He was awful. We need to get rid of him. Ten Hag, that was Sancho, and now Sancho looks set to be leaving. It's such a vital thing, and it's happened before with managers, the player-manager dynamic having issues. Mancini and Balotelli at City, for example, Ruud Gullit and Alan Shearer at Newcastle, that's another one, Alex Ferguson and David Beckham. It happens, but Klopp has a good way of sort of keeping it professional. He has a good way of keeping it all behind the scenes as not to disrupt the club. If there's a player causing an issue, like I guarantee, if Trent was causing issues, Trent didn't want to train properly, if Trent was underperforming, if Trent was showing a bad attitude, Trent would be dropped. And there might be people going, "Why are you dropping him? It's Trent. He shouldn't be going." But if Klopp sees a problem, if Klopp sees an issue, he would definitely. He'd be gone. He'd be gone. There wouldn't be a huge hoo-ha about it. Ten Hag is the opposite of that. He wants to make a scene. He wants to create an atmosphere by saying that this player is not good enough, this player needs to go. And, he did that with Sancho. Lewandowski is absolutely right that Klopp push people, but he does it in the correct way. I think personally, he's undoubtedly the best man manager in the league at the moment. Let me know what you guys think. Have listened to me ramble now for about 45 minutes. I've got about another 15 to go. Please get your questions in. I've still got a few here that I've saved. Really want to go through. Just before we carry on as well, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really, really does help out. And the guys are so close to 10K. Let's get this done. Let's get to 10K before Christmas. Nice Christmas present there ready for everyone. Paul Lindo asked, should we extend Matic for another year? Yes, I believe we should. His performances this season have proved why the conversation around him has gone from get rid of him, he shouldn't be here, to should we extend him, should we keep him? I think he's been brilliant. I'd argue he's been better than Canate at times. And it was so unfortunate in the Tottenham game to, for that own goal to be his. I saw the next comment and it really threw me off. So yeah, for me, Matic should be extended. It does depend on his role. It depends on his wages. I believe someone did comment on this actually a moment ago. It depends Matic isn't a bad 1 year extension if you sign him for like 75 to 80K. He's currently on 100. I agree with this to an extent, but if his performances are matching the way he's been playing so far this season, keep him on the contract he's on. Matic was signed on a free. If he leaves on a free, we're not doing bad business. If he's going to continue to perform the way he is, 100K a week's actually good, because my argument is Matic would get into most Premier League teams. I think he'd get into Villa. It's better than Tyrone Mings. I think he'd get into Newcastle. It's better than Fabian Schär. Brighton, possibly partner up with Lewis Dunk. There's a lot of teams that he'd get into. And for 100K, again, in the modern game, that's not dreadful. It's not great, but there's definitely worse contracts out there. And if you sign him for that 1 year extension, the sell value is going to go up. We could make a fee for him this summer if we sign him before. If we do decide that we want to get rid of him, we're going to bring someone else in. So it's an interesting topic. Who is the most overrated manager in the league, and why is it Ten Hag? It's an interesting one, actually. I think Vincent Kompany came in with all this promise, and that hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype. Other than Vinny Kompany and Ten Hag, I know this one's going to get me a lot of flack, maybe rightfully so. I think De Zerbi is slightly overrated. I think what he's done at Brighton has been incredible, but Brighton have been on the end of some dreadful results. They either smash teams or get smashed. And I do agree, De Zerbi is a good manager, and Brighton have really done well to get him in, but do think the talk of him going United, rumours of Chelsea, I've heard people say if Klopp left, they'd want De Zerbi there. I just don't think he's that good yet. I think he needs a good few seasons to sort of establish himself in the league to really make that case. Because yes, he gets them playing great attacking football, but then there's other games where they'll get trounced 6-1 against Aston Villa. They'll beat Man United 3-0, but then they'll get thumped by Everton 5-1. It's very difficult to gauge De Zerbi at the moment as a manager. So I do think him, Ten Hag, Vincent Kompany, I think they're the big ones. And the question's still out. Is the Youngsters on later on tonight? From what I understand, yes, that is still going ahead, 2 a.m. UK time. So make sure you tune in for that. It is more for the American audience, but I've been on it. The guys who are on it are superb. Please make sure you get it. I am representing Mexico, apparently. So, we see where my loyalties lie. Remember to get your comments in as well, guys. We've got time for maybe one or two more. Do apologise. Gravenberch seems like the perfect profile to be molded as Fabinho's replacement. Very tall and strong and good on the ball. Agree. More talented than Thuram, the player everyone wanted. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Gravenberch has the potential to go to be a more deep-lying player. The problem is, I suppose, he's been so good going forward that maybe it's going to sway Klopp a bit. And I think if Grav was doing better defensively, and maybe not as good going forward, that maybe the roles would be switched and McAllister would be further up and Gravenberch would be further back. He could be for being a replacement. I've always compared him to Wijnaldum myself. Maybe that's just because they're both Dutch players who are tall and strong, but I do think if anyone, he is the one who should be moulded into it, not McAllister. McAllister should be the one further forward and Grav should be further back. He definitely has that ability. And I said before the Tottenham game on Redmond TV, he was the one who I thought would start in midfield because he could cover Trent when Trent goes forward. I'm just not set on this McAllister number 6 role. I know a lot of people aren't. We are in desperate need of a CDM. Endo just is not the answer at the moment. He just seems like a rotation player for experience in a Milner role sort of thing. Gravenberch could definitely fill that role. But again, we just need someone who's ready-made. CDM, not trying to mold players into that position, so to speak. It doesn't make a lot of sense to be doing that at the moment when we have the finances available to go out and just sign a CDM out and out. We like to look at the transfer market, but what about our young players? How much is Kwanzaa worth? Views on the market. Kwanzaa at the moment is, I'd say, around 30 million. It's still very early days, but there's signs there that he's going to become a great player. I did a video on my channel literally just 2 hours ago. A bit of self-promotion there. Just saying that, the way he has the ball will be coming to a position attacker. He'll go from behind and clear it. That's a very Van Dijk thing. He can ping a diagonal cross across the pitch. He's very tall. He's very fast. He's a bit of a mould of Konate and Van Dijk. And there's definite, give him more time, season maybe, the value will be up to 50, 60 million. But at the moment, just because I think the age and the fact that he's come in so seamlessly has maybe just boosted the price. And I'm very much of the belief that in the modern game, a lot of players are just overvalued so quickly. They have 1 or 2 games, suddenly they're worth millions and millions. I mean, Caicedo, for example, had one good season, he's 100 million. Cucurella at Brighton, he was worth 60, 65 million for some reason. Young players now, the minute they touch a ball, their value is £20 million. And I don't want Kwanzaa to sort of fall into that same bracket because he does genuinely look good, but it's only been a game or 2. It's only been 8 games in the season in the league, 2 in the Europa League, 1 in the Cup. I agree with maybe look at some of our young players in that CDM role. Bajcetic is a player I haven't even touched on. Bajcetic could fill that role. That's, absolutely. I don't agree that he's the most defensive-minded player, but he could do the job if he continues to learn from the players that we've got currently around him. So that's definite. 2026 World Cup is being shared by US, Canada, and Mexico. But if Mexico supporters continue and to gauge chance they may lose their matches, fine, fair enough. I absolutely agree with that. Quite excited for the World Cup. I'm excited for the Euros as well. I know there's a lot of fans on here who aren't England fans. I actually love the international football personally. It's on right now, but I'm trying to avoid it. I've got it recorded. Please don't spoil that for me. Cheers, Lou. Boo, Mexico. I got this today actually from my girlfriend. She bought me it as a present. So I felt like I had to wear it for the video today. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all the questions we've got, guys. If anyone's got any last ones they want to come in, please feel free. Overall, my thoughts on everything at the moment, it's just been a bit slow because of the international break. It's definitely been hard to get Liverpool news. Transfers are the key thing going around. They normally are around this time of year. And we've just got to keep going. The Everton game is the next big thing coming up, so there's going to be a lot of talk around that. And then one final question as well, just before we shoot. If you were Klopp, would you keep Trent at right back or midfield? I've always said, well, not always, I've said recently that I think Trent should be given that role in midfield. Just give him the go. Trent is, he's not a defender. Trent is a player who he wanted to be a winger, but he got put at right back. I believe it's Gary Neville who said that, or Jim Carrey said fullbacks are just failed wingers. Trent just strikes me as that. He can pick a pass unbelievably well. And I think if you put him in midfield with someone who's able to defensively cover him or two players in front of him who are going to divert all the attention of the opposition team, Trent being able to pick a pass the way he can and does would be outstanding in that CDM role. At a right back, I'd rather see someone brought in who's a bit more solid, a bit more stable. Maybe not like Gomez because he can be a bit rigid at times, but just someone that the club can sign to fill that out and out right back role and let Trent just be creative in midfield. I've said deep line playmakers don't work. They don't necessarily in the Premier League, but if you've got another player beside them who can defensively cover them, Trent could set the league alight, not having to worry about trucking back to make that position if you've got someone there, an out and out right back or another midfielder to cover him. He's like McAllister. He wants to be further forward. He's having to play further back. Give him freedom to do it. Play him in midfield for a role. England are doing it at the moment. He's listed as a midfielder on their website. So give it a go. That's the only thing about it. Right. I think that is pretty much all the time we've got. Somehow my rambling has stretched this to an hour. I say, guys, thank you very much for tuning in and watching. This was my first solo one. Remember to tune in every single day, 7:30 p.m. UK time, 2 a.m. American UK time on Tuesday for the American stream. Please remember to like and subscribe. We're so close to 10k subs. Really does mean a lot to us that this close. 9.75, I believe we're on at the moment, so we're really close. Let's try and get it done before the end of the year. Thank you very much for watching as well. Appreciate all the support. Have a nice day. Hopefully we smash Everton at the weekend, and I will see you guys soon. Have a nice night.